Hello, welcome to Freedom Quest channel, where I traveled to Ghana and found freedom. Join me on a journey where we break free from limitations and embrace living on our own terms. Some struggles you may find will be with finances, procrastination, fear, and the unknown. But keep watching my channel as we overcome it all. My name is Barbara, and I found freedom on the continent. Yep, I found freedom on the continent, and I'm here to inform you today that about about the life in Ghana. Okay? The topic today is about the 5 misconceptions of why Africans don't like African Americans. I want to shout out the two named Io and her husband Tony. Their channel was called Expat Life Ghana Beyond the Return, where they too discuss Africans don't like blacks. In parentheses, they have Africans hate African Americans. Now, that I hate is a strong word. I don't like to use that, but that's the name of the channel. And I'm here with this title of my video to say Africans, the misconceptions of why Africans don't like African American. My experience on the continent is that dealing with different people on the continent, I found that we do have a lot of differences. I would be lying if I told you we don't. We don't, but that doesn't mean that we don't like Africans and Africans don't like African Americans. It just means we're different. We are different. African in Ghana, they um, are unique in their culture. They have different ways of eating foods that we've probably never even seen. You know, some people they eat with their hands, um, and it's traditional. And it really makes sense because the way the food is made, like banku, you want to pull it apart and use your hand to eat the fish or whatever it is you're eating with the banku. And there's other dishes. There's soups that are good, and there's no better way than to eat it like the locals eat it. Africans' culture is different. Unfortunately, because we were brought to America, we are associated now with the white man. They tell us we're blacks. They'll say you're blacks, you're American, like the white man, because we come from the Western world. We weren't brought up in our native country, unfortunately, for many of us, you know. So we come back and with our Western ways, and we come back to Africa, and it's hard for people to separate from what they know, what they used to, what they've been taught, and even though some of it is, what they've always known, it may not be your culture originally, but that's all we know. You can't tell somebody to change something they've been doing for 50 years, 20 years, 30 years. Now we can learn and respect one another and learn the differences. So hopefully that's what we get out of this video as well. Because I've been on the continent for like 2.5 months. And everyone I've met, they will tell you, hate African Americans? No. They will tell you, no, no way. We don't hate them. We don't hate anybody. You know, that's so, or dislike. It's just there's a difference, and some people take it a little further than others. Some people are very voiceful about it and angry, and some people understand, but they still don't like some of the things that the African Americans are doing on the continent. You know, it's just like coming in somebody's house and not speaking. It's a disrespect. You got to have manners. This isn't your country. We want to believe that we belong in Africa. We're here, like we belong there, like we from there, but we're not. And that's one of my topics. But we're not from Africa, literally speaking. On a daily basis, we come from America, and we have different ways. So I think if we embrace those, it would be better for us to embrace each other and understand the differences. But going forward, because this video is about why African Americans and why Africans don't like African Americans, allegedly. Because again, like I said, I've never met anyone that felt that way. But I've had people talk about things they don't like. So again, Africans, Africans look down on African Americans. That's what some have said. They look down on us because they heard from the media, from the celebrities in the movies that they make, from what people have told them. They've heard that Black African Americans like to fight. I've had one woman even tell me, say, "Yeah, you like to fight." I was like, "No, I don't like to fight. No, we don't like to fight. That's what we heard. Y'all like to fight. Y'all real violent." I was like, "No, no, no. Now, if you mess with us, if we have to fight to protect ourselves, that's what we're gonna do. But to just generally like to fight, no, absolutely not." So when they heard that, it was like, "Oh, okay, because that's what we heard." So it's a bit of a misconception from um, both parts. So they also look down on African Americans because of the gang banging that they see on the movies. The movie The Wire, somebody even told me about in Baltimore on the continent, that they saw that movie and it was like, oh my goodness. And the drugs, they look down on African Americans because of drug usage, drug habits, things like that. So this is all going by what they see, and I tell them all the time when the conversation comes up, if I happen to be talking with someone about it, we can't go by what we see on television. We have to communicate with one another. So going forward, that's number one. Africans look down on African Americans for those reasons. The number two is they don't see African Americans as Africans. Africans don't like the fact that African Americans come to Africa assuming that they are Africans. And they feel like, no, you're not Africans. You're not like us. You don't know us. You don't know nothing about us. So how are you saying because you're black like me that you are African? And what makes an African has nothing to do with the Western way or African Americans, the way we come from what they call the white people area, Westerners. We acting like them. We have money like they have, some of us. So that's why they don't like that. Just like if you was to tell a person that you're their family member and you're not. That's like, wait a minute, hold up. You're not my family. And we could be like friends so close to we call each other family, but you're not. So that's what they don't like, is for African Americans to come to the continent and act like you know them, act like you know their culture. Now you can say you want to know the culture, you can respect their culture and talk to them, but to come to the continent and put on African attire, and because you're black like they are, that you think that now you're an African. What makes an African is more than just your clothes, is more than just knowing a dance, a song, and they don't like that you come acting like you're an African, because it's more like a disrespect too, because you're taking a culture and a heritage that you know nothing about. So I found that that's one of the reasons also why they don't like African Americans. Okay. Number 4, African African Americans look down on Africans too. African Americans look down on Africans. And that's one of the reasons why Africans don't like African Americans. As you know, there's for years, centuries, Africans has been coming to the United States. And I'm pretty sure everyone could recall somebody talking about an African on their job, at their school, and they hear the people talking about them negatively. So if you're at a place and you're being talked about, you're going to tell your family. You're going to tell your people back home. So Africans have heard how African Americans has mistreated their people when they come to Africa. I mean, when they come to America, they've they've heard of it. It's just like if you was to go and tell your people how you've been treated on a continent. So for years, a lot of Africans have had negative experience with African Americans on in the United States. So a lot of Africans have heard this and have experienced it. So that's another reason why they don't like African Americans, because not only did their family and their members of their family or themselves come to America and been treated like trash, and then you got the African Americans coming to Africa talking about we Africans. So you can't erase somebody's experience. You can help change it by communication, but not coming to somebody's country and taking over like you are them. You're not. So that's the way that they feel, and you got to understand that. You know, one time it was a disrespect to call somebody who is an African American, calling another African American an African. They didn't want to be associated. So it's like they're like, don't try to come to my country now to act like you African, when this is the experience that their people have had when they've come for school, work, or whatever. So, the fifth reason why Africans don't like African Americans, and this one was mentioned on IO and Tony's page when they discussed it, and it was one I could associate with. So that's why I added that one in here. And it's the one that says African Americans are impatient. They also they talked about the one about them being impatient and they always hurrying up. I'm adding to that by also adding we talk too fast for them. I've been told to sit down. And I'm like, I'm okay. And he's like, man, madam, sit down. And then I didn't sit, so they go ahead and do something else. And matter of fact, the place I was at the MTN, and it was crowded. And I'm coming through with my waves that I have, and I'm just like, oh my God, this place, oh my goodness. I'm not saying it out loud, but you can see it in my body language. And I'm like, oh God. So I'm standing up and I'm like, oh geez, I'm trying to figure the place out. And the gentleman said, madam, sit down. And I'm like, I'm okay. And he like, sit down. Pulls the chair, and I was like, oh, that chair sits too low. And he went and got another chair. And I could see the way his body movement was like, oh my goodness, this lady is just in a hurry. So he gives me the chair, and I still stood for a little bit longer. And then I finally went and sat down, and he looked at me and smiled. And tell you the truth, I sat down and it was like a load off. It was like I was more relaxed, because we as African Americans is always in rush, hurry mode, because we're trying to do things. We're trying to take care of stuff. We're trying to get it done and keep it moving. And on the continent, that attitude, that behavior is not going to get you nowhere fast in Africa. You have to take your time, be patient, be humble, be relaxed. And I can truly say I was more relaxed when I sat down. When I sat down, I was more patient, more relaxed. You come off as hostile, African Americans. We come off as hostile. So you need to relax, sit down when you're talking and taking care of business. Take that seat. Take that seat. And even when we talk, I've been told by a good brother and a good sister on the continent that I have to repeat myself several times. They say, huh? Say it again. And then they just agree because they believe that you talk too fast. The one young lady even told me after the fact that I just said, yeah, but I didn't know what you was talking about because you talk so fast. So that's one of the things that some people on the continent as Africans don't like. It's a struggle to communicate with us because we talk so fast. So between being in a hurry, talking so fast, looking down on the African for the way that they eat, their culture, the way that they live, um, the things that they do on a daily basis, as far as how they manage to get money, the fact that they believe that Africans um, don't have anything, the fact that they look down on us because we fight or we gang bang. They hear about the drugs. Um, these are many of the reasons why Africans don't like what they don't like about the African Americans. And the fact that also the fact that they associate themselves as Africans when you know nothing about the African. And even when you learn, they still don't feel as though you're an African. You don't just become an African because you step foot on the continent. We're associated with Africans because that's our ancestors come from Africa. But we're not Africans as they are. The type of African that they are and where they come from, they don't consider us. We may be listed as African Americans in America because that was the name that they gave us. But we were always considered colored or black. And then they, too, knowing the truth, said, no, you're African Americans. Because you can't take the African away from us. You can't take that. That's what we are. But because you put that American on it, then it changes our dynamic to to the pure African that has been born and raised in Africa. It's definitely a difference. Yes, it is. And I respect them for their views. And it's not a bad thing to say you don't like something about someone, but to say that you don't like them because of it, specifically then that's not cool. But you can say you don't like that they this, they that. That's okay. So those are the differences between us. And I think if we all just be open-minded and respectful and understand that these differences do exist, these stereotypes do exist, and when you have an opportunity, not forcing your views on people, but when you have an opportunity to talk about it amongst each other, educate, share in a loving manner, and be patient. So yes, thank you for watching the channel. I'd like to invite you to comment. Let's talk about this. And I also like you to recognize that I have another video that's coming called Building in Ghana. My building journey will be the next video upcoming. So ensure that you do not miss that video. I invite you to hit the subscribe button if you like this kind of discussion and content, and hit the share button just in case someone else wants to hear the same information. So again, thank you, and till next time, have a wonderful day.